So you didn't direct this film, your role as executive producer, and how did that work for you, being a director, writer, producer, all those things, to be a mentor and a guide for Matthew? How was your relationship together during the process of creating this?
Well, Matt and I have co-directed a lot of things together, so we're almost one unit at this point. The film that we're doing now, I usually have a bunch to say, and then I walk off the set and watch from afar, and it's really wonderful to be able to trust someone as much as I've grown to trust this individual, to bring the heart, because that is one thing that is a staple of our work, is it's not just about the data. It's not just about the information, which so many documentaries are so damn boring, because that's all they want to do is convey, data, and the data is important. But if you don't have the heart, the spirit, and the soul, that you actually feel the humanity in the information, for me, it just triggers the mind, and the heart is really where the power comes from. And so he has that ability to do that. I think one of the greatest decisions I've ever made is making sure that Matt was the one that was going to take the wheel of the ship. I'm so proud of this film and the work that he's done. And so it was really a matter of, I get a lot of calls. As soon as I leave Los Angeles, I go right into the epicenter of the measles situation. And we're going to bring you the truth about that. And that was going to be released very soon, because it's not what the media is telling you, but it's not that much better. It's actually worse. And so there's the doctors that are treating mostly children 0 to 6 years old. Like this, and I want to be super clear, because when we talk about Delta and whatever, this is not a virus, people. This is a bioweapon.
That's right.
And so if we can just settle with that, it's a tough one. It's really tough to understand. My life was changed as a filmmaker. I would have probably, stayed in this town, but 2001, I was at the World Trade Center when it was attacked, and did search and rescue and body recovery, and that was a snap-to-grid moment for me. And through that process of considering, was our government in on something like that? They'd never do that, would they? Like that, really? And I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
And to wake up to the depth of the reality of this, there's a reason we called it Plandemic. And I remember the first time I was on the high wire, and Del Bigtree goes, I just want to push back on one thing, and that is, that it was a plan. He doesn't think that anymore. Years later, he went, shit, you were right. This is looking more and more like it was an orchestrated effort to actually create this crisis. And so, that's what we're dealing with. So here we are, Americans, sitting in a room together, 500 of us, just watched a very important movie about very important people that deserve our love and our attention. And there's a reason that the third film in the series of Plandemic was called The Great Awakening, because this is the Great Awakening. And as painful as it is, just like birth, we're being birthed into beyond the illusion that has been orchestrated to shield us from the realities of our government, and that there really are forces so dark that they would knowingly harm people and children. That's what gets me. Is that they knowingly know, and right in the middle of the crisis, that these brave people from React 19 were on Zoom calls with the people. They would hear this, and they're still doing studies and learning that this is real. People are being injured. They knew that. And then they say, you should get vaccinated. Pregnant women, it's okay. Come on, step up. What level of sinister, frickin' darkness does it take for a human soul to do that? And so it's been hard for me, someone who wants to believe that at the core of humanity is goodness, and I think we're all born good, but something happens along the way, and we can drift into the conversations of good versus evil, and I really believe we are in a spiritual war right now. And when darkness does its best to take over, then it's our job to shine brighter. And so when it came to me, and Steve and I said, all right, well, I got the seed money to start this film. And it kept going on longer until it reached the point where I said, well, we've tried to raise more money, and I'll go ahead and just bootstrap it. when I personally reached $300,000 of my own money, which was my family's savings, I reached out to a very, very important group called Texans for Vaccine Choice. And they're right here. And they came in, thank you. We love you, thank you so much. And they came in, these mostly women, really brave women, some of them mothers of vaccine-injured children, stepped up with the finishing funds so that we could be here today in this room together. It wouldn't have happened without you guys, so thank you. So I was already moving forward on this project. I had actually reached out looking in my local community of Texas. We'd basically been driven out of Los Angeles. We lived in Ojai, California, and they started a petition to make my family move after I released Plandemic. Yeah. And they called, CPS on our children, all kinds of really nasty stuff. That conscious yogi, we are one community somehow. Namaste was a namaste, apparently. And so I get this, I said, we're going to make this damn film. And that, we probably don't have enough money, but we have enough money to start. And I thought, well, I can't do it the justice that it deserves, that it requires, because I'm now on to Plandemic 3, The Great Awakening. And so I end up calling Matt. He's in the jungle on another project, and he had, as he said a moment ago, he already had the insight that he's got to make this film. And so he ends up getting cell coverage that he didn't have for like a week or two.
8 weeks.
8 weeks of coverage, but somehow he's up on a tower and hello, I said, hi. We haven't met yet, but I hear great things about you. I'm looking for a director. And I will produce it, and I will oversee it, and we'll be there, but I need someone I can trust, and I hear wonderful things about you. And he said, well, quite the same, and matter of fact, that's the film I've been wanting to make and been praying to make. And here we are.
That day, I remember it was a series of events in the jungle. It was so odd. I was woken up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and my mom, who's here, my parents, that traveled all the way to
Good job, man. Real trusted job.
whatever I wanted to do to support me. But my mom used to tell me when I was a kid that I'd walk around the house and say, I'd be talking to myself, which obviously I'm a good talker, so I like to just talk all the time. So I'm walking around the house talking to myself, and I'm like a little kid, right, Mom? I'm like super little, and Mom would ask me like, who are you talking to? And I was like, my best friend. Who's your best friend? Jesus. And I just go, and it's true, and I've had this connection my whole life. And in the middle of the jungle, at 5 o'clock in the morning, Jesus Christ woke me up and told me, go out to the bridge. There was a bridge that connected where we stayed to this research facility. And I walked out to the bridge, and God is my witness in front of all of you, Jesus Christ put this on me and just gave me this download and told me, I need you to do this. And I wanted to do it. So the reason we're here is because God is good. And God is real. And God is permeating consciousness, guys. And I think when you know that about life, when you realize that, and you can't unsee it, and you love everybody, and you want to meet them where they are, and you want to be compassionate and care about everybody and fight for them, because you know that everywhere you look, you're just looking back at God.
Your process and your team at Elevate. I've had a little bit of a privilege to work with the Elevate team, and can you talk about some of the other members of your collaborative team at Elevate, how you work together to produce a film like this?
We're a family. I mean, we really we're super close. There's a larger team around us, but would you say the core group really sometimes is just like the four of us? It's you and Gabby and Tyler and I.
Yeah, there's no more than 6 people, and so if you put that into perspective, and it's something that we're very proud of, but it also shows that when you're in service to goodness, that there's unseen forces that become very supportive. And so here we are, this little team in the basement of my home, and then Matt's living room and Tyler's, I don't know what the heck room you work in, but Tyler's house.
I imprisoned him in mine.
With all within an hour from each other in Texas, constantly running back and forth, and here we've been able to produce on donated money, and without the resources that all these major media companies, and I will say that none of this, we would not be in this place of blindness if it weren't for the mainstream media. They have pulled the wool over all of our eyes. They have done such great damage. None of it is news. It is opinion that is handed down from the Great Oz into their teleprompters, and they all repeat a script. They are the actors. And,
They divided us.
And so to have the abilities, so as I mentioned earlier, I was at the World Trade Center in 2001. Just in day 2, I had an awakening. It was also a God awakening. And I couldn't be part of Hollywood anymore. I literally was like, geez, let me see, what? And I asked myself a question that crushed me. I said, out of everything I'd created, I had a pretty good career. I created a lot of things. I said, one day when I have children, what would I be most proud to show them that I've created? And I literally went, oh shit. Nothing. Nothing. This town had turned me into a puppet, and I was selling products that I wouldn't use myself. And I'm degrading women in music videos, and I'm like, what happened to that kid who had a dream to come here to move people, to make a difference? Like, this system churns out robots. And I'm suddenly in a system here selling things and repeating their messages, which I don't even approve of. And so it was a real wake up to come to the other side of this, and I thought, I was done. I'm out of Hollywood. I want nothing to do with it. And I went to Napa Valley and lived for about a year, and really had time to meditate and pray and think, like, this is kind of all I know, and it's what I love. I feel like I deserve to do it, but there's just no playing field for me. And so I decided, well, what if I returned with one mandate, and that was just tell the truth? Because no one's doing that in media. And that, as soon as that seed was planted, a whole world started to unfold for me to do what we do now. So now our little production company of 5 or 6 people get more views than most of the mainstream media combined. And we don't like that.
Thank you for sharing. That's an amazing story, Mickey. Thank you for sharing that. I want to get back to the film for a minute here and talk about one of the villains in the film, and I wanted more of the Peter Marks Zoom calls.
Oh, there's lots of it.
That's what I was going to ask. I mean,
That's
Brianne, when it came up on the screen and you're up there with Peter Marks, I was like, oh my God, there's so much I want to say to him. And tell us, how much more is there that got left on the cutting room floor?
8 hours.
8
8
hours.
hours of Peter Marks.
TV show.
Yeah, so Matt and Mickey, there's 8 hours.
It will be released publicly. You are going to find, because that's what we want. We want to tell you the truth. Go into these, watch these videos, go through these emails. We're still compiling some of this stuff so we can get ready to put it on the website. We want you to go look at it. This is about transparency. We're not trying to sell you a message. We just want you to be given the truth, because it was kept from you. The degree that the United States government went to hurt these people, to suppress the story, to destroy informed consent, is much bigger than what's in this movie. I'm going to tell you, this is an onion of a story, and we just took off one layer, and there are many other layers within that. I mean, one of the things, honestly, to answer your question, one of the things it hurts not to have in this film was the multi-system inflammatory syndrome. And this anonymous physician that we're protecting their identity, they hold the FDA to the fire, and they go through a study. I don't think I've even told you this, Steve. They go through a study that shows, correct me if I'm wrong, Brie, was it 26 or was it 22 kids?
Yes, there were 26 kids, and several of them had died. And they had vaccination, and then they got MIS, which MIS is very potentially fatal. You have to intervene because it's very severe. And there were 2 cases out of all of them that had COVID between the time of vaccination and when their MIS showed up. And they all blamed it on COVID. So they all got vaccinated, other than 2, got MIS, several died. They all ended up in the ICU, and they ended up being diagnosed with MIS from COVID. And so we confronted Peter Marks with this, and he just kind of went, well, it's from COVID, we did the study, it's great, it's fine, don't worry about it. But we just kept saying, but the kids were in the ICU after their vaccine with this very dangerous illness. And it didn't matter how many times we went, or, I mean, it's exhausting. It's like talking to a brick wall. And at the end of the day, the Sarah Walensky, who's also at the FDA, remember her name, guys?
Please remember her name.
She asked us, she goes, but did the kids die? She takes a sip of her coffee, you know, like twirls her hair. I mean, yeah. So it was weird facing evil, like, but we kept going back because we knew the people that needed the help, and we were not going to flinch. We were not going to hesitate. We were going to take that as far as we could to do everything possible to push through that brick wall and make sure that these people got help, that the adverse events were recognized, that all of you, understood exactly what the benefits and the risks were. We did everything we could, and you're gonna enjoy those recordings.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
gonna have a Substack for every single meeting.
And
I'm looking forward to it because I have personally called Peter Marks and left a message on his phone at the FDA at least half a dozen to a dozen times. And I've said that, hey, the FDA says misinformation is a big problem. We actually agree with you on that. We just disagree on who's spreading it. And can you imagine? Peter Marks has not returned a single one of my calls. I offered on a silver platter, I will bring to him all of the misinformation super spreaders in the country, and we can have a recorded Zoom call against the FDA, having a nice cordial conversation with all the misinformation super spreaders, and we can finally get to the truth of who's spreading misinformation and who's not. He has declined the offer because he never returned any of my calls. And by the way, these guys know, the CDC, there were 770 different safety signals that were triggered by these vaccines. And one signal would be myocarditis, another one would be pericarditis, another one would be cardiac arrest, another one would be pulmonary embolism. 770 safety signals. Do you know what they told the public? They said nothing. It's like Sergeant Schultz when you asked him what was going on. Nothing. And the only way that we were able to find that out, that they knew that there was 770 safety signals that were triggered and they didn't inform the public, was through a Freedom of Information Act request. That's what it takes.
You probably have more data than anyone else on the planet, and I went with you to the CDC. You were trying to present them. Now that we have Bobby Kennedy as the Secretary of the HHS, what are the chances that the vaccine injured are going to get their coding, their due?
So that's a complicated question. And I talked to Bobby. I said, hey, Bobby, all you need to do is just put me in touch with somebody at the CDC or FDA who will talk to me on a recorded line. And we'll blow through everything. He said, I have to put my staff in place. Senator Weldon, of course, would be the CDC director, to put into place to facilitate that call.
No.
And of course, you know what happened.
No.
Is that they withdrew his nomination.
Thursday.
And this was very troubling. And then since then, I have learned that President Trump has given Bobby Kennedy carte blanche to do anything except for the vaccines.
Oh.
Because he thinks the COVID vaccines, Trump thinks the COVID vaccines are his greatest accomplishment, and he doesn't want to look bad. Okay? So this is why Dave Weldon is not the head of the CDC. Okay? And it's also why Bobby's talking about food safety and not necessarily talking about vaccines. So I don't know how far this extends, but I'm not getting my hopes up. I thought when Bobby was confirmed, we were like high-fiving and great, this is the beginning of the end here. It's going to be a much longer road than I anticipated. I'm sorry to my wife who's here because I said, Bobby's there, it's gonna be all over, we're done. This is going to unfortunately take a much longer time, and there are people in, like the CDC, who leaked information to the New York Times about this autism study, which then led to the nomination being withdrawn because a senator, got upset about that. And so there are people actively in the administration who are acting to, make sure that Bobby doesn't succeed, and it's unfortunate. And I was talking to one person who was telling me earlier today about, well, he's got an honest person at HHS. And I said, really, you have an honest person at HHS? Who is he? And it turns out it's the same honest person, the one honest person I've identified over 5 years who works at HHS. So we found one honest person at HHS. That tells you the extent of how deep and bad this is, that we know the same one honest person at HHS. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And I hope that people really take from this. You gotta understand something, guys. The politics of this country is literally killing us. That political divide is not real. The people that would say they're on the left or on the right have all of the same, they care about the same things. There's so much empathy and love between these two ideologies that are supposed to be on some artificial divide, and it's all bullshit. And it's all paid for by our government, because as long as we don't stand together and talk to each other, then we're easy to manipulate and we're easy to divide. And if you're on the left and you saw this film, all of the people in this movie would all count themselves Democrats. All of the things that they care about are what you care about. I mean, most of the people in this film, that's who they are. These are people that had their voices cut off, that had a denial of healthcare. Healthcare was impeded because of politics. Because the moment they said, this happened after the vaccine, now they're an anti-vaxxer. I have talked to people in our government, and I've talked to them on behalf of REACT to try to get REACT to speak to people, even congressmen in my own state of Texas. And we found out after the fact that they went around our back, went to the Democratic National Committee and said, do not talk to this group of anti-vaxxers. That's the level, that's where we're at, people. The government is doing things to us that we have to stand up against. And we can't do it as Republicans and Democrats. We have to do it as people. We have to do it as a community. Heal the divisions in this country. There's people have been torn. We've all lost people in our lives and friendships and loved ones. Heal that. Call the people that you've lost and tell them that you love them. Because that's what will fix this. The trauma that our country and our world is feeling will stop when you reach out and connect to each other and get that sense of community. Because that's what these people did. That's why they're alive and here today, and they are getting better. And it's because of love.
I was giving the wrap it up, but I want to follow up with one more question is, how are we all going to be able to share this film? What's next for Follow the Silenced?
About a month, right? About a little over a month, maybe end of April, somewhere in
Well,
there.
I'm sure that we'll release it the same way we've released all of our films since 2020, which is free to the people. And so we're building the networks right now. If anyone has a large network, hundreds of thousands or millions of people that want to join up here, what we typically do is we'll set up a website, and we have a bunch of people that are part of this network, and we'll send the file out to everyone. And we then encourage everyone else, don't just watch the film in one particular area, but download the file yourself. One of our prized possessions is in 2020, CDC put out a memo saying that Plandemic was the hardest piece of media that they'd ever tried to squash because it was decentralized. So it was in the hands of the people. So where normally they would just come, and the first thing they did was, I didn't know this at the time, but we had Plandemic.com or Plandemicmovie.com, I think it was, and we purchased, I thought, from GoDaddy, URL. I didn't realize, I didn't think about it, I should have. But the reason you keep paying every year like $12 is you just lease that URL. And so they have a right to revoke it. And so the first thing that happened was our site was zapped. We had no URL. And so then we learned really fast, oh, okay, this is going to be interesting. And I actually did develop this system for Bobby Kennedy, because he'd called me one day years ago and said, I want to produce a media with you, but we just can't get past the gatekeepers. Like, everything gets shut down and shadow banned. And so the moment we told the public, download this file, it's yours, no restrictions, put it on your computer and share it from your personal devices and your social media platforms, they couldn't stop it. So really, a lot of the answer to our sovereignty is sovereignty of us becoming. That's why blockchain and all these technologies are so important, because it offers, if we were to look at like who are they, who is the enemy, there's a lot of names we can call them, and the people that are really behind this, you probably will never know their names. But we talk a lot about this term globalist, the globalist, whatever. What does it mean? Well, it truly is a group of people that, even though they've conquered nations and they've worth billions of dollars, they want to control the world. They want to control all of us. And the numbers are a problem, so depopulation is part of the program. But when they want to control everything, one banking system, energy, and everything, so they have the ability now to never be found out. And one of the saving graces of COVID was, I don't believe they were ready to go. This plan was supposed to happen a few years later, but because Trump found his way into office, so while there's many reasons for us to hiss and be concerned, it was also his presence after every impeachment and everything that they were trying to stop him. They pushed this forward, which is why they didn't have the vaccines ready, why they didn't have a lot of the narrative totally captured. This is why we had states within our own nation that didn't play the game. Kristi Noem said, nope, I'm not going to shut down. I'm going to give everyone our choice. And then we had other nations that didn't play the game. And now we're able to use them as outliers. Greatest test study ever. We're able to go, well, here's what we did. And why is it that Italy and New York and some of the most vaccinated places have the worst numbers? And why are their economies crushed, but the places that didn't tell people they can't work anymore, why are they doing better? The goal was to do this in a few years once they had all the different leaders of all the different countries switched to these globalist supporting leaders. And so the real saving grace was we now have the proof, and they really messed up, because now we've seen behind the curtain, that little Oz pulling the levers, is revealed. And that is, really the beginning of something incredible, because this is the most horrific and largest crime against humanity ever perpetrated. Yeah. And we've taught them. And this film is part of that. And so it's really, really, it's despite, and I also want to say one other thing too. I know we got to wrap it up, but it's important that we do not demonize all the medical field, right? There's the vast majority. People used to early on say to me, well, first of all, they say, how did you release Plandemic so quick? May 4th, 2020. You must have started on it at the moment the pandemic was announced. I said, I did. And how did you know? And I said, because my brother was killed by AZT, which was prescribed by Anthony Fauci. So as soon as I saw that rat's face on television again, I knew something bad was going to happen. My mom was killed by bad cancer treatments a month later. I just put my dad in hospice care because he took 3 vaccine shots. My nephew's in the hospital right now with a hole in his gut from pharmaceuticals. So my whole family's been devastated by this. But then I had a lot of people say, the real pushback was, are you trying to tell me that all these hospitals and all these people, they're all in on it? No, they're not. They've been bamboozled just like you. They've been gaslit. They have been shamed, conned, and coerced into setting aside their own intuition, their own intelligence, and that if there's any lesson that we need to learn as human beings, is to never allow that to happen again. Don't let anyone ever tell you that what you feel, what you know is real is not real. And every doctor and medical professional that might even be in this room, never again. One of the reasons so many high-level scientists were so susceptible to this propaganda was because they've spent their lives working in government-funded and pharma-funded organizations, their universities, all their training, their pamphlets, all the sales reps that come in and indoctrinate them every single day. They have also been victims of this agenda. And so I've had so many sit across from me in my interview chair bawling their eyes out because they took an oath to do no harm. And then they realized they were actually forced to do exactly that. And so this awakening in our medical, in the world of healthcare is happening right now, largely thanks to brave people like Brianne and all of you for React 19. David Katz, people like you that allow us to be right here in the building, the beats at the friggin' Directors Guild to show this movie is no small risk. So, thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching this film. Thank you so much. I don't have the words for that. I've never showed a feature film to anybody before. So thank you for being here. It means so much to me.
Mickey, Matt, Brianne, Steve, thank you for making Follow the Silence. Thank you, and thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
My wife, I have to say, Nadia's.
Hi everyone, do not leave because there's some surprises. I just want to say, we have some special announcements, so please don't leave. I just have to make a couple announcements, so bear